The emergency beacon cut through the static of deep space. Communications like a dying scream. Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her palm against the cool metal console of Research Station Kepler-7, watching the holographic display flicker with desperate orange light. The signal originated from Kethera Prime, a world so hostile that even the Galactic Council had marked it as a forbidden zone. The Quillen research vessel Star Whisper went down 3 days ago, she reported to the assembled rescue team. Their last transmission indicated a complete systems failure during atmospheric entry. 17 crew members, including ... She paused, her voice catching, including a juvenile. 8 years old by their standards. Staff Sergeant Marcus Rodriguez leaned forward in his chair, his weathered hands clasped tightly. Around the briefing room, representatives from 6 different species shifted uncomfortably. The Altarians' crystalline forms chimed with distress, while the Vorthan delegates' tentacles writhed in what Marcus had learned to recognize as deep anxiety. The rescue window closed 12 hours ago, announced Commander Thek, his scaled hide shifting from blue to deep purple. Kethera Prime's Shadokin have likely consumed any survivors. The Council has officially classified this as a total loss. Marcus stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the metal floor. There's still child down there. Sergeant, Commander Thek's voice carried the weight of authority. I understand human emotional responses, but logic must prevail. 17 trained researchers with advanced equipment couldn't survive. 1 human with standard gear has no chance. The room fell silent, except for the gentle hum of life support systems. Marcus looked around at his fellow rescue corps, members beings from across the galaxy, united by their desire to save lives. But now they sat in defeat, accepting the unacceptable. I've read the files on Shadowkin, Marcus said quietly. They hunt by fear scent, phase through energy barriers, and grow stronger in groups. But they're still animals. Animals follow patterns, have weaknesses. He turned to face the commander. I volunteer for solo extraction. Dr. Vasquez's eyes widened. Marcus, the psychological profiles show that humans experience fear just like any other species. Your courage won't make you immune to their hunting methods. Marcus smiled grimly, thinking of his own daughter safe on Earth, probably playing in their backyard garden at this very moment. Maybe not immune, but there's something you don't understand about humans. When a child is in danger, we don't think about fear. We think about getting them home. The Altarian delegate chimed softly, their form shifting to curious amber. The human proposes to face certain death for an alien child he has never met. This behavior contradicts all known survival instincts. That's exactly why it might work, Marcus replied, already running survival scenarios through his mind. He thought about camping trips with his daughter, teaching her to read animal tracks, showing her how to find shelter and safety in the wild. Those skills, honed by a parent's protective instinct, felt suddenly vital. Commander Thek's scales rippled through several color changes before settling on resigned gray. If you're determined to throw your life away, Sergeant, I can't stop you. But you'll go without official sanction. This is your choice alone. Marcus nodded, his jaw set with determination. Then I'd better get packed. That little girl has been alone long enough. Asterisk, the drop pod screamed through Kethera Prime's atmosphere. Like a falling star, its heat shields glowing white-hot against the perpetual twilight. Marcus gripped the restraints as the automated systems fought against hurricane-force winds and gravitational anomalies that made the planet a graveyard for spacecraft got through the porthole. He caught his first glimpse of the world below Endless. Forests of twisted black trees, beneath a sky the color of dried blood. Massive shapes moved between the canopy, too large and too fluid to be anything natural. The Shadowkin were already hunting. The pod's retro thrusters fired in sequence, slowing, his descent just enough that the impact didn't kill him. Marcus crawled from the smoking wreckage into an alien wilderness that seemed to pulse with malevolent life. The air itself felt thick and oppressive, carrying scents of decay and something that made his primitive brain scream. Warnings about predators. His scanner immediately picked up the crashed Quillen vessel 3 kilometers to the northwest. The ship had carved a devastating path through the forest, leaving behind a trail of shattered trees and scattered debris. More importantly, his bioscanner was detecting a faint life sign near the wreck. Marcus checked his equipment: plasma rifle, emergency beacon, medical kit, and enough rations for 5 days. Standard gear for what everyone expected to be a recovery. Mission for his body. But as he began moving through the twisted undergrowth, something strange happened. The oppressive feeling that had greeted his arrival began to fade, replaced by the familiar calm he felt during rescue operations. The first Shadowkin found him after 20 minutes of hiking. It emerged from behind a cluster of thorn-covered trees. Like smoke given form 3 meters tall, with 6 limbs that ended in claws like obsidian daggers. Its face was a nightmare amalgamation of predatory features from a dozen worlds, and its eyes burned with an intelligence that spoke of calculated cruelty. Marcus raised his rifle, but the creature did something unexpected. It stopped, its burning. Eyes met his, and for a moment that stretched like eternity, predator and prey sized each other up. Then, with a sound like tearing silk, the Shadowkin melted back into the forest. "What the hell?" Marcus whispered, lowering his weapon. According to every briefing he'd read, Shadowkin never retreated from prey. They hunted until they fed. His communicator crackled with static, then cleared to reveal a small, frightened voice, speaking in the musical tones of the Quillen language. Marcus didn't understand the words, but the meaning was universal. A child calling for help. He activated his universal translator and spoke carefully into the device. "Hello? Can you understand me? My name is Marcus. I'm here to help." The voice fell silent for a long moment, then replied in accented but clear standard. You came for me, but the monsters ... They killed everyone else." Marcus felt his heart clench. "Where are you, sweetheart? Are you hurt?" "I'm hiding in the ship, but the lights are going out, and I'm scared. The shadow things keep trying to get inside, but they can't touch the emergency barriers." "Not yet." Marcus began jogging toward the crash site, his scanner painting a path through the hostile terrain. "I'm coming to get you." "What's your name?" "Zara. I'm Zara Shimmerdance of the Quillen Research Collective. I'm 8 cycles old." Her voice wavered with exhaustion and terror. "Marcus ... Why aren't you afraid?" Everyone else was so afraid before they ... before the shadows took them. The question caught him off guard. Why wasn't he afraid? He was on the most dangerous world in known space, surrounded by monsters that had killed 17 trained scientists. By all rights, he should be terrified. Instead, he felt the same focused calm that had carried him through combat zones and natural disasters back on Earth. The same protective instinct that made him check on his daughter every night. That drove him to volunteer for the most dangerous rescue missions. "Because you need help," he said simply. "And when someone needs help, especially someone young, humans don't have time to be scared." As if in response to his words, another Shadowkin materialized from the gloom ahead. This one was larger than the first, its form crackling with dark energy. It approached slowly, testing the air with motions that reminded Marcus of a hunting cat. Then it stopped. Just like the first one, it studied Marcus with those burning eyes, then faded back into the forest without attacking. Marcus quickened his pace, a wild theory beginning to form in his mind. Something about humans was different. Something the galaxy didn't understand. "Hold on, Zara," he called into his communicator. "I'm almost there." Asterisk, the wreckage of the Star Whisper spread across a cleared area like the skeleton of some massive beast. The ship's hull had been torn open in 3 places, and scorch marks indicated where the Shadowkin had tested the emergency barriers. Inside the largest intact section, Marcus could see the faint blue glow of failing power systems. "Zara, I'm at your ship? Where are you exactly?" Her voice came through the communicator, small and exhausted. "Section C, behind the research lab. There's a maintenance crawlway. The door is locked, but the barriers are getting weaker. I can see shapes moving outside." Marcus approached the ship carefully, his scanner sweeping for threats. The readings made his blood run cold. 17 life signs had vanished over the past 3 days, their biosignatures simply ending in terror and violence. But somehow, miraculously, one small signal still pulsed with life in the center of the wreck. He found the access hatch Zara had described and called out softly. "I'm right outside, sweetheart. I'm going to open the door now." The hatch slid open, with a grinding of damaged mechanics, and Marcus found himself looking at the most beautiful sight in the galaxy, a frightened but living child. Zara was small even by Quillen standards, her iridescent skin dim with fear and exhaustion. Her large eyes reflected the spectrum of emotions, like living gemstones, currently a deep purple that Marcus's cultural training identified as profound sadness. Asterisk, asterisk. "You're really here," she whispered, her voice filled with wonder. "I thought I was dreaming." Marcus knelt down to her level, keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. "I'm here, and I'm going to get you home. Can you walk?" Zara nodded, but as she moved, her skin began to shimmer with involuntary bioluminescent patterns, a Quillen stress response. The lights danced across her features in cascading waves of blue and silver, beautiful but dangerous on a world where anything bright attracted predators. Almost immediately, something stirred in the darkness outside the ship. A low sound like distant thunder rolled across the clearing, answered by similar calls from the forest. The Shadowkin were responding to her light display. "Zara, I need you to try to dim those lights," Marcus said urgently. "Can you control them?" Her eyes widened with panic, which only made the lights brighter. "I can't. When I'm scared, they just happen. That's how the monsters found everyone else. My fear lights led them right to us." The thunderous calls were getting closer, and Marcus could see shapes beginning to emerge from the tree line. Dozens of Shadowkin, drawn by the promise of prey that advertised its terror. They moved with predatory grace, but strangely, they seemed reluctant to approach the immediate area around the ship. Marcus made a decision that went against every tactical manual he'd ever read. Instead of preparing for a firefight, he sat down, cross-legged next to Zara, and began speaking in the gentle tone he used with his own daughter during thunderstorms. "Hey, do you know any games? My daughter loves games, especially when she's scared." Zara stared at him in disbelief. "Games? There are monsters everywhere." "That's exactly why we need games," Marcus replied calmly. "Games help us think about something else besides being scared. Here, let me show you a human game called I Spy. You look around and find something you can see, then give me clues about it." Despite the approaching danger, Zara found herself drawn into the simple interaction. I spy something that's broken and silver? Is it part of the ship's hull?" "Yes." Her bioluminescent patterns began to shift from the panicked blues to cautious yellows. "How did you know?" "Good guess." "My turn, I spy something that makes beautiful lights when it feels things." Zara giggled despite herself, her skin shifting to warm golds. "That's me." As they continued playing, something remarkable happened. The Shadowkin that had been approaching stopped at the edge of the clearing, as if hitting an invisible barrier. They circled the crashed ship, but came no closer, their burning eyes fixed on Marcus, with what looked almost like respect. Marcus, Zara whispered. Why aren't they attacking? They killed everyone else so quickly. Marcus looked around at the creatures that should have been tearing them apart. A wild theory that had been forming in his mind suddenly crystallized into certainty, because you're not alone anymore. And humans, we're different when we're protecting someone. He stood up slowly, Zara clinging to his hand. Her bioluminescent patterns had stabilized into the gentle pastels that indicated curiosity rather than fear. As they moved together toward the edge of the ship, the Shadowkin retreated, maintaining their distance like wild animals acknowledging a more dangerous predator. We're going to walk out of here, Marcus told her. But we need to stay together, and we need to keep playing games. Can you do that? Zara looked up at him with eyes that now shimmered with hope instead of despair. You're like the heroes in the old stories, the ones who could make safe places just by being brave. Marcus squeezed her hand gently. I'm not a hero, Zara. I'm just a human who won't let anything hurt you. As they stepped out of the wreckage and into the hostile wilderness, the Shadowkin formed a strange escort close enough to watch, far enough to avoid whatever invisible field seemed to emanate from Marcus when Zara was near. For the first time since arriving on Kethera Prime, Marcus began to believe they might actually make it home. The trek through Kethera Prime's nightmare landscape took on a surreal quality as Marcus and Zara made their way toward the extraction point. The Shadowkin followed at a respectful distance, their burning eyes never leaving the unlikely pair. But something fundamental had changed in their behavior. Instead of hunting, they seemed to be observing. Marcus, Zara whispered as they picked their way across a field of crystalline formations that sang in the wind. I've been thinking about what you said, about humans being different when they protect someone. What about it, sweetheart? Marcus kept his voice gentle, while his eyes scanned the terrain ahead. His scanner indicated they were halfway to the pickup coordinates, but the readings also showed something unexpected, more life signs scattered throughout the region. Not Shadowkin signatures, but something else entirely. In our old stories, there were beings called sanctuary makers. They could create places where the young and helpless were safe, no matter how dangerous the world around them. Zara's skin patterns shifted to the deep purples and golds that indicated deep thought. What if humans are real sanctuary makers? What if that's why the galaxy needs you? Before Marcus could respond, they crested a low hill and found themselves looking down at an impossible sight. In a sheltered valley below, a small settlement thrived. Crude but functional shelters dotted the landscape, and figures moved between them, not human, but clearly intelligent. As Marcus watched through his scope, he identified at least 3 different species, including some he recognized from extinct species databases. That's not possible, he breathed. Those are Valdris down there. They've been extinct for 200 years. Zara's bioluminescent patterns flared with excitement. Look closer. There, by the largest shelter. Marcus adjusted his scope and felt his worldview shift again. Standing among the supposedly extinct Valdris was a figure he recognized human, wearing the tattered remains of what might once have been an exploration suit. As he watched, several young creatures of different species played around the human's feet, their games identical to what he'd seen in playgrounds back on Earth. We're not the first, he realized. Other humans have been here. Their approach down the hillside drew attention from the settlement. The Shadowkin escort had grown larger during their journey, but as they neared the valley, the creatures began to fade back into the wilderness. By the time Marcus and Zara reached the outskirts of the impossible community, they were alone. The human who emerged to greet them was a woman in her 50s, her hair gray, but her movements still strong and purposeful. Behind her came a parade of young creatures, juvenile Valdris, with their distinctive crystal-patterned fur, Small beings that looked like living flowers, and others Marcus couldn't identify. "Well, I'll be damned," the woman said in accented standard. "Another human, and you brought a little one." She knelt down to Zara's level, her manner immediately gentle. "Hello, darling. I'm Dr. Sarah-chun. Welcome to Haven Valley." Zara's patterns shifted to the warm yellows of happiness. "You've been here all this time? With all the shadow monsters?" Dr. Chun smiled. "The Shadowkin? They're not monsters, sweetheart. They're guardians. They've been protecting this valley for decades, ever since they realized what humans do for the young ones." Marcus looked around at the thriving community with growing amazement. "How is this possible?" "The reports said Kethera Prime was completely hostile to life." "Hostile to adult life, yes," Dr. Chun replied. "But something about this world creates a symbiotic relationship between humans and the native guardians. When we protect the young and the young from any species, the planet itself seems to recognize us as allies." She led them through the settlement, explaining as they walked. "I was part of the first research expedition here 30 years ago. We crash-landed just like you, but I was traveling with my 8-year-old nephew. The Shadowkin that should have killed us instead became our protectors. Over the years, other ships have crashed, other survivors have found their way here. Always humans with young ones to protect." They paused before a memorial wall where names in dozens of languages were carved into stone. "These are the ones who didn't make it," Dr. Chun said sadly. "Adults traveling alone, or crews without children. The planet, it only recognizes the protector bond. Without something to shield, humans are just another prey species." Zara looked up at Marcus with eyes that shimmered with understanding. "That's why you could walk through the shadow creatures. Not because you're brave, but because you were protecting me." Marcus nodded slowly, pieces of the puzzle falling into place. "And that's why the rescue protocols always fail. Adult crews can't trigger the protection response." "Exactly, Dr. Chun." "Confirmed. But you too have proven something wonderful. The bond doesn't require a biological relationship. A human protecting any young being can create the sanctuary effect." As evening fell over the impossible valley, Marcus found himself surrounded by proof that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their courage. It was their instinctive need to create safe spaces for the vulnerable. But even as he marveled at the discovery, his communicator crackled with an incoming transmission from the extraction team. The real test was still to come. They had to get Zara home, and that meant leaving the safety of Haven Valley for the dangers of open space, where the sanctuary effect might not be enough to protect them from the galaxy's bureaucracy and fear. Asterisk. The extraction shuttle Mercy's Wing descended through Kethera, Prime's turbulent atmosphere like a silver needle threading through a storm. Marcus watched it approach from the valley's rim, Zara's small hand clutched tightly in his. Behind them, the impossible community of Haven Valley had gathered to see them off Dr. Chun, the rescued juveniles of a dozen species, and their various adult guardians, who had all learned the same fundamental truth about humanity. "You sure about this?" Dr. Chun asked, her weathered face creased with concern. "You could stay here, both of you. It's safe, and Zara would grow up surrounded by others who understand what it means to be protected by a human." Zara's bioluminescent patterns shifted through the spectrum as she considered the offer. For a moment, they settled into the deep blues of longing, and Marcus realized she was tempted. Haven Valley represented everything the galaxy had failed to give her: absolute safety, community, and understanding. But then her patterns brightened to determine goals. "My parents are still alive on Quillen Prime. They think I'm dead. I have to go back to them." Marcus squeezed her hand. "Then we go back, together." The shuttle's landing created a whirlwind of dust and debris and Marcus could see the crew's faces through the viewports, expressions of disbelief and barely contained. Horror at finding survivors on the death world. The airlock cycled open, and Commander Thick emerged in full environmental gear, flanked by 2 security officers. Sergeant Rodriguez. The commander's voice crackled through his suit's speakers. "I can't believe you're alive. When we lost you?" "Signal 3 days ago. ... double quotes." He paused, noticing Zara. "The juvenile survived as well?" "Her name is Zara," Marcus said firmly. "And yes, she survived. We both did. Impossible." Dr. Vasquez appeared in the airlock, her scientific curiosity warring with concern. "The xenobiological reports on this world indicate a 100% fatality rate for non-native species. How did you avoid the Shadowkin?" Zara looked up at Marcus, her patterns shifting to questioning purples. He nodded encouragingly, and she stepped forward to address the rescue team in her clear, musical voice. "The shadow creatures aren't monsters," she said. "They're guardians. They protect the young ones when humans are there to shield us." Commander Thick's scales rippled through several color changes indicating confusion and disbelief. "Child, that's impossible. Our xenobiological data clearly shows." His words were cut off as movement exploded from the forest around them. Dozens of Shadowkin materialized from the undergrowth, their forms more solid and defined than Marcus had ever seen. Them. But instead of attacking, they formed a protective circle around the group, their burning eyes fixed on the shuttle crew with unmistakable warning. "Nobody move," Marcus said quietly. "They're not threatening us. They're making sure Zara gets home safely." Dr. Vasquez stared in fascination at the creatures that should have been tearing them apart. "The bio-readings are unprecedented. They're exhibiting pack protection behaviors, but toward an alien species." She looked at Marcus with growing amazement. "What did you do?" "I kept her safe," Marcus replied simply. "And apparently, when a human protects something young, this world recognizes us as allies." The largest Shadowkin, a magnificent creature nearly 4 meters tall, approached Marcus directly. Its eyes burned with ancient intelligence, and when it spoke, its voice carried the weight of centuries. The universal translator struggled with the complex harmonics, but the meaning came through clearly. Guardian human. The small bright one must journey beyond the sky void. Will you shield her among the star-cold ones, who do not understand the old contracts? Marcus looked at Zara, then back at the towering creature. As long as she needs protection, yes. I'll keep her safe. Then know this, guardian human. The shield you carry is not bound by world or star. Where you go with young ones to protect, there will the sanctuary travel also. This is the gift of the deep contracts, earned by service to the vulnerable. The Shadowkin began to fade back into the forest, but not before the largest one touched Marcus's forehead with one massive claw. For a moment, he felt something fundamental shift inside him, not magic, but an awakening of something that had always been there. The protective instinct that every human carried, amplified and recognized by forces older than civilization. As they boarded the shuttle, Commander Thick could barely contain his amazement. "Sergeant, what you've discovered here could change everything. If humans can create safe zones for young beings anywhere in the galaxy. Then maybe," Marcus said, settling into his seat with Zara beside him, "it's time the galaxy understood what we're really for." During the journey back to civilization, Zara's parents received the impossible message that their daughter was alive and coming home. But more importantly, the Galactic Wilderness Rescue Corps began receiving volunteer applications from humans across known space parents, teachers, guardians of all kinds, who suddenly understood that their protective instincts might be exactly what the galaxy needed. Marcus looked down at Zara, who had fallen asleep against his shoulder, her bioluminescent patterns now cycling through the peaceful pastels of absolute trust. He thought about his own daughter back on Earth, and realized that every human carried the same potential he had discovered on Cathura Prime. They weren't just another species struggling to find their place among the stars. They were sanctuary makers, shield bearers, the ones who could create safety in an infinite and dangerous universe simply by refusing to let the vulnerable stand alone. As the shuttle jumped to hyperspace, carrying them home to their respective worlds, Marcus smiled. The galaxy was about to learn what humans were truly capable of when someone needed protection, and that was going to change everything. Asterisk.